just pull up my screen. But so, hi everyone. My name is Shaz, and I am South African. I'm 31 years old, and I am a Stephen Johnson's and toxic epidermonucleosis survivor. Um, yeah, I suffered from Stephen Johnson syndrome last year in August. Long story short, I ended up in a 6.5 week coma. Lost vision in my left eye, lost 75% of my skin and all my hair and nails. And that's just the short of it. So, yeah, it's really cool to be here and to share this strange experience that I am recovering from.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Um, it's good to know about yourself. And one thing I really loved about your social media page was your advocacy work. Can you please tell us more about that? How you started, how it's going, and what have you done so far?
Honestly, when I started the page, so when I was induced in a coma, my mom had a lot of faith. Even at a point where I had less than 1% chance of survival. That's how bad my numbers were when I was induced in that coma at the worst point. So she took a lot of content, like just she didn't know it was content at the time, but she took a lot of pictures of like as I was being the process because a lot of the time I had like bandages wrapped all around me. It was like a really scary, freaky thing. So she started taking pictures, and then when I woke up to everything, she showed me those pictures. And she encouraged me to share my story. Um, and initially, I was not, I mean, I did not even want to see myself. So I definitely didn't want um, anyone to see me at that point because I still hadn't come to terms with it, basically. I looked like a completely different person. I'd lost so much weight. I couldn't see. I just didn't know what type of life I would, I didn't think I would have, I thought I'd have the lowest quality of life at that point. And with Stephen Johnson's and toxic epidermonucleosis being such a rare disease, there's not a lot that they can predict. Like a lot of the predicaments, fortunately for me, the predictions they had, like I was not meant to have as much vision as I have. My hair was not meant to grow back, like at least at this point, because the effects are quite long term. Um, and luckily that's happened for me. So when I realized that I'm actually healing from this quite nicely, and at some point when I had somewhat come to terms with it, I decided the main reason, the initial reason I started sharing was because I just wanted to come out to the world basically that this is what I looked like now, because it was I had no skin, like from my face all the way down to my waist. My skin had been deprived, and that's why I had like all those scary mummy looking bandages around me in the pictures that you see in my content. um because that I didn't have skin, that those bandages were meant to be like my supporting skin. But yeah, I just saw the difference, and I thought I need to document this. Like I realized as well, like very early on when I woke up from the coma, that this was quite a different, this was a rare experience, regardless of the fact that I was the one. I was shocked in every part of it. So I thought, let me document this. Let me start sharing my story. Let me spread awareness, because I heard for the first time about this when I woke up from a coma, that that's what I had. So I knew that a lot of people had never heard of it. I knew by the way that people reacted, people around me were reacting to just, what I had experienced, that this was something that, wasn't very common. So I thought, it's looking great. It's progressing quite well. When I started having hope, I wanted to share that. And it's just been that way. It's just been like, me sharing, and I got a lot of, I got more healing from this than anyone else, honestly speaking, because sometimes, when you experience things as, like events as like, pivotal as these, you realize that not people don't we don't really know. um Sorry, excuse me, 1 second. 1 second, sorry.
It's okay.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I was where was I was taking content because I could see that it was a miracle, first of all, just me being alive, and that more miracles were coming. But it gave me a lot of hope. Sometimes when you're going through things, you just need somebody else to help you carry the load, someone to validate that what you are going through is indeed like, incredible. And, it gives you strength. Like it really supports is literally people helping you carry the load. So it's helped me, but it's also given other people hope. And it just became that. Like I didn't really know that it would become that, but it's just I'm getting hope from it, and it's giving other people hope that no matter how bad your situation may be, regardless of a situation being something that is unheard of, there's hope. And that's basically what it's become about. It's just like whatever your situation is, you can make a beautiful life from it. And I think it's just from, I started sharing very early in my journey also, because remember, I just wanted to come out to the world and say, this is what I am now. Okay, deal with it. Because I was literally hiding. Like I looked so different, and at some point it was very swollen, because remember, when you burn that much of your body, it's going to be inflamed for a very long time. So I just didn't look like a human being basically at that point. So yeah, just the journey that showed, a situation that was once so bad to a situation that is now so much better. Beating all the odds. That there's hope. There's hope in whatever your situation is. You can navigate and find, your new reality basically. And now it's at a point where I'm leaning more towards, one of the main reasons I survived. Like, we've spoken about it with my doctors over and over again, because my survival wasn't even something that they predicted. There was a time they called my mom and they told her, "We are very sorry. It doesn't look like she's going to survive." So we've always spoken about what did they do that managed to stop the infection from spreading, because for a long time that was the problem, is that I reacted to a medication, an ingredient in a medication, and they didn't know what had caused it. First of all, they didn't know what to use to stop it, because also medication, antibiotics can also make it worse. So they don't know, what it actually was. But they always say that the fact that I was exercising and looking after my health so well before that is the reason why my body was able to withstand all that trauma, and still be okay. To like within the first month after I left the hospital, I was already back exercising. It obviously wasn't what it looked like, but and the fact that I was doing that is what has been like the main key for my mental health, for my physical health, because a well balanced lifestyle gives you that. It gives you the freedom to live a healthy and full life, mentally, spiritually, physically, and all that. And that's where I'm going with it now. I'm trying to teach more people that you can live, a wholesome life, one that you can do and indulge in the things that you want to indulge in moderately, and still, eat good food that is actually good for you, and still be active all in one day. So yeah, that's where we're going with work at this point. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was a heartfelt comment from you. Um, I want to ask you the diagnosis
Yeah.
process, right? How long did it take for your doctors to realize that you had the rare condition? You had Stevenson syndrome.
So I was on a medication called Epitech, right? And with Steven Johnson's, it's not so much the medication. Apparently, it's an ingredient within the medication that triggers the reaction. Um, and I had it. I was in a mental health clinic when I started. When I was put on the medication, it was supposed to be a chronic medication that I was meant to be on for the rest of my life, as I was misdiagnosed with a type 2 bipolar. Um, well, apparently it was misdiagnosis, because diagnosis is perception. But anyways, so I was on the medication for 2 weeks, and then when I got discharged from the hospital, my psychiatrist increased the dosage to like 15 grams higher, and that's the day that I started getting sick. Um, I started with a fever, and it seemed like I was getting a flu, right? And then the following day, I went to see a doctor, and the doctor confirmed that I was getting a flu. At this point, because I wasn't counseled by the psychiatrist, I didn't know that it was possible. I did not do my due diligence to check the reactions, but I was in a hospital, You don't really you don't check when you're in hospital.
Yeah.
Um and then I reacted on the day that so I went to a doctor, and I didn't tell him that I was on new medication. He didn't ask either. He just said I had a fever and put me on medication and sent me home. The following day, midnight, I woke up. I started developing the hives and the blisters. I was very itchy, but every time I would scratch, it would burn up. I went back to the same doctor, and this time I told him that I was on new medication, and he still said I had chickenpox. So I was misdiagnosed again twice. Um, I'd had seen Stephen Johnson's when I was Googling my symptoms the night before. So I asked him, I said, I did see a thing like this. And he took a minute and he just said that if it gets worse, I should call an ambulance immediately. So even after I brought it up, he still said, if it gets worse. And then the day after that, I woke up at the early hours of the morning. My throat, my eyes, the blisters felt like they were inside my throat, inside my eyes. I couldn't eat. I tried to get up. I couldn't walk anymore. The blisters were under my feet. That's when I decided to call an ambulance. Called an ambulance. Went to hospital. By that time, I knew that it was Stephen Johnson's because all the symptoms I'd read about were full blown there. And then, so every time I was, meeting a doctor, I would tell them. And because it's such a rare thing, it's such a problem because everybody just gets freaked out. As soon as they
Mm-hmm.
hear Stephen Johnson's, because a lot of health practitioners have never come across it or have only just heard about it or just know that it's something that's caused by medication. They panic as soon as they hear about it. So I was in the first hospital for about 2 days and just not really getting anything, just being monitored. And a doctor would come in and they would tell the doctor, no, it's Stephen Johnson syndrome. And I was still not really getting treated because they didn't really know what caused it and how to stop it and all of those complications. I don't really know the reason why they were not, but I assume that's the reason because that's been my experience since my diagnosis. Every time I go somewhere, they don't want to really treat me because they're worried about, causing the reaction. Um, and then because the blisters were spreading so quickly, when I started reacting, I kept taking the medication because I had no idea that the medication could have caused that. Until the third day of my reaction, I kept taking the medication. And it's like I think I was taking it 3 times a day. So I think by day 3, the blisters had gotten so big, they just decided to take me into theater. Apparently, I signed forms, they took me into theater and they just debride skin off. That's when my mom decided that I was not in the right hospital. They moved me to another hospital. In the second hospital, as soon as I got there, they had had an experience with someone with Stephen Johnson's. So they immediately decided to induce me in a coma because they realized how bad it was spreading and that if I was awake, then my skin wouldn't be able to heal back. So they decided to induce me into a coma. So within like the first 4 days, the first hospital debribed my skin off. The second hospital induced me into a coma. And then that's when they started just like basically I was in theater twice a week, 3 times if necessary. They basically were just taking off because they were not able to stop it. I think it went on for about 3 weeks of the infection just spreading before they managed to stop it. I think at some point they they tried something and it made it worse. So the infection kept spreading. So all they were doing is just like taking the skin off so that it can at least heal back um not as bad as it would have been because sometimes you see people burn victims that whose faces become a bit disfigured because the flesh it gets the burn sort of just I don't know how the medically works, but I do understand that it's got a lot to do with how the skin is set up after you burn. So that's what they were doing until the infection was stopped. They just kept removing skin and putting the bandages back on, and the special bandages I had on um were literally all over my body, like from my head, like a mummy. Like a mummy, how they wrap mummies up. That's how I was wrapped up, and that was like a special bandage that's supposed to be like a layer of skin because I didn't have my layers of skin. Um, oh gosh, sorry, I'm getting a call. Are you still with me?
Yes, 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 we
Forgive
can
me
see
for
you.
this. So yeah, and then they did that for a while, and then eventually they were able to stop the infection, and then that gave my skin time to heal, and sort of grow a skin barrier. And then as soon as it grew a skin barrier, they started removing the fake skin bandages off. And then when that was removed, then they started waking me up. because then it meant I could move around without, further infecting the skin or, whatever many other problems there were. But the problem was with my eyes, the eyes had already stuck to this the eye on the left especially. If you see, it's got a bit of more tissue on it because it had stuck to the eyeball. And it was because the eye was burning on the inside and on the outside, right? So the mucosal membrane layers, how it really attacks like those layers. So like in the throat, there were ulcers. In my mouth, there were ulcers. In my eyes, there were ulcers. So this one was the most affected. I have about like 3% vision in this eye. They had to have surgery to have it open. They removed a piece of tissue from the inside of my mouth here because apparently those are made of the same material, and then they put that piece back in here and they open my eye at least. There is like hope for it in the future because they can open it, like they can remove that tissue, but that's just the situation with my eye at the moment. So then they started to wake me up. Then at that point, because you in a 6.5 week coma. Oh yeah, you also get a tracheostomy where they cut you here because you can't use the oxygen that you put over your face because you don't have skin. So it's just they need to make they need to help you also because you also get pneumonia. Remember, like it attacks the mucosal membrane layers, so it also like really affects your respiratory system, but it's different for everyone. I think because I had it to the extent that I had it, where like by which I had it, it affected more of like my systems than it does for a lot of other people. But it's different. Like some people it'll affect their eyes more, some people it'll affect their chest more. Yeah, so they treat you according to how it affects you. And then when I was woken up, I had lost all muscle and so I couldn't speak, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. I was put into physio. Um, they were supposed to, my eyes were supposed to snap open. This one did, but this other one did not. This one had stuck from the burn. So this one was more badly burnt than this one. Um, yeah, they teach you how to walk, they teach you how to swallow. I remember they taught me with the tracheostomy on because they were worried about my breathing because I had such a big, like, suffered such a big trauma in my chest. Like, even when I cough, I have like a, apparently I'm going to have this like weird sounding cough for a long time because my chest was very badly affected. So I had to learn how to eat with the tracheostomy on. I couldn't speak for about 3 weeks after I was woken up. They woke me up in the 7th week of the coma. And then I was kept on with the tracheostomy. So now I'm awake, can't speak with the tracheostomy on. Um, yeah, and then they after that, I think when you as soon as you can walk and swallow, basically you can go home. As long as you don't have, I didn't have like any other systematic disease. Like my oxygen levels were high as much as my chest had was affected. When I started getting better, my oxygen levels were high. I didn't have any hypertension. People can get, issues with their joints. People can get a lot of issues like long term with Steven Johnson's. Um, so yeah, I don't think that happened. They did want to send me to an occupational rehabilitation because with learning how to walk, especially after like a coma that long, but I didn't end up going to that. It was just after that I've been seeing specialists. I've been seeing dermatologists. Also with the ulcers that were happening in my mouth for so long, I've had to do a lot of dental work. I see an ear, mouth, and throat specialist. I recently had a procedure done in my throat. I see an ophthalmologist for my eyes. So I have to see a lot of specialists to sort of repair the fire that Steven Johnson's created in my body, in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. One of the main challenges we face in the rare disease community is the diagnostic odyssey, right? The doctors
Yeah.
being able to diagnose your condition. And from the way you said it, it's exactly how it is within the healthcare sector, right? For some rare
Mm.
conditions or diseases, it can take something like 4 to 8 years. That's the average for someone to get diagnosed for a rare disease.
Wow.
Yeah.
It
And
is.
it's really something we're trying to fight off. We're trying
Mm.
through this program. We have Rare Disease
Yeah.
Initiative. we want to create a future generation of doctors that are informed about rare diseases.
Yeah.
If they do not know a condition, it's better to refer and get the person diagnosed as soon as can be
Mm.
before the disease progresses, right? So I want
Mm.
to ask you a question. We have some medical students within this meeting. What advice or what do you think medical students or healthcare providers should know about rare conditions or rare diseases? What's one thing you wish them to know?
Oh, I feel like they just ask more questions, ask more questions. Like, really, I feel like they don't ask enough questions. Sometimes they don't give people enough of a chance to explain what's going on. You can get an easier diagnosis just by speaking to the person you're dealing with. And some doctors just want to doctor you the whole time. Just ask me, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what's happening.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
really that would be like the biggest thing. That's where I felt like I was failed by the system where, even if after I spoke up and said, "Do you think it could be?" He didn't even diagnose, like have a closer look at me after that. He just took a moment, took a deep breath and said, "If it is that, then call an ambulance." So you see
yeah.
how like it was almost like he disregarded what I said.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Um, do you have any other support you're receiving? What role has maybe community support, family, or patient groups played in your experience?
Oh, it's played all the roles. Hey, it's really played. Like as I said earlier on, sharing my story brought me more healing than I think it brings like the support that I've gotten from the internet. My family's been incredibly supportive. I've gotten support from everywhere, I'll be very honest. And it's not something I expected. Um, but it's something I'm very grateful I'm experiencing even till this day. Yeah, social media has been great. To a point even where I was able to open a backup buddy and get funding for all the specialists that I need to see because medical aid doesn't pay for it. And my family is all unemployed at this point because last year they were all looking after me after that whole situation.
Mhm,
So I've really found like so much help, even like with, the work that I am trying to do because I was a beautician, but I can't practice as a beautician anymore. I'm self-employed because my vision is very impaired. Like I have 35% vision in one eye at this point. It is healing. It is getting better. Oh, I also got these prosthetic lenses. I forgot to mention. It's quite the game changer of my impaired vision is that I got like these scleral lenses, those pros devices. I was able to get those, and that's what's actually giving me any like vision because my mucosal membrane layer, my vision was so blurry to the point where I couldn't go anywhere on my own. I was basically like a blind person. So yeah, the community that I found, even in just the health workers that have been a part of my journey, they have been incredibly helpful. Yeah, it's been really great.
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really good. That's really
yeah,
and I think you mentioned something about hope, right?
yeah.
What really has kept you going all this far? What has kept you going?
Oh, it's really my support, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
Because on my own, like, I really realize how important it is to have people you can rely on in life. It doesn't need to be a lot, but it really has been my support because I did not have enough faith on my own to push through. Most days I woke up and did not want to wake up in the earlier stages of this. Before I came to terms with my new reality, I did not want to wake up in most of the days. And it was my mom or a friend or, a family member that was always like, hi, are you doing okay? That's what actually kept me going. I'll be honest. Those are the people that I wanted to get better so I can come back to life for. Um, yeah, so it's definitely more than anything, that's what's actually helped me through. And just loving life. I mean, I think obviously I didn't want to live a miserable life. So I knew that I had to fight in order to increase the quality of life to sort of navigate this new reality. I mean, for going from living a life, I was a very social person. I was out and about. I was at the gym. I was independent as well. So it was a really, really big challenge. It's been the biggest challenge I've ever experienced. But also just the biggest leap of growth has taken place in my life from this experience. So it's been very, very challenging, but it's also been amazing at the same time. Very rewarding. Um, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Um, okay, we've got a question from one of our attendees in the meeting, Gift Modumo, right? He's asking, are you on any chronic treatment for this condition? And if any, what is it?
No.
Okay, 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 okay. I think that answers it. Okay. Um, what one thing that's a challenge within the rare disease community, besides the diagnostic odyssey, is the stigma that comes with the rare conditions, the rare diseases, right?
Yeah.
Have you experienced any stigma, and how have you been able to fight it off? I know your advocacy work on your Instagram page.
Mm.
It's quite good in combating that stigma, but what what have you done, and what kind of stigma have you faced?
Gosh, I don't know. It's very hard for me to experience stigma. Um, I think I went in it knowing very well that there's going to be people who are going to be very upfront about how they feel about how I look, um, and just this whole experience. So it's not even something that I noticed to a point where I can tell you what type of stigma I experienced. But yes, there definitely has been. There have been people who were upset that I think it's okay to show up in public looking the way that I do. There's been things about what disease I have. Um, People think I'm like fully blind and they don't really understand that you can have a little bit of vision.
Mhm, mhm.
um, yeah, and just like that, I should cover up. I feel like people project that a lot, and it's understandable. I really had to learn to put myself in somebody else's shoes with this experience. And so, if I saw someone looking like me and I was a small minded, closed minded person who hasn't seen other things, I would be very curious. I would stare. Um, I prefer it when people ask, really, because it's better than staring. Um, but yeah, I haven't. It's really not. It hasn't been anything specific over and over again. It's just been random projections that I understand as well. Because had I not come to terms with it before I came to terms with it, I would also see the same projections. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. I do really commend your work in
Thank
fighting off
you.
the stigma, especially your social media page. And
Thank you so much.
I've seen how much international recognition your social media page has received. It's really quite good that you're spreading awareness, and it's on a
Mhm.
larger scale, far much more what I can do or anyone can do. And as a person with a
Thank
lived
you.
experience, your voice is it's heard better than someone who's just telling
Yeah.
people about rare diseases, and I do really commend that. Then are there any? I know this question might be challenging, but are there any policies or frameworks that you think maybe the government can implement so as to include persons living with rare diseases? Because it's all about the quality of life. Once you
Mm,
get a rare condition or a rare disease or a rare disorder, your life after that, your diagnosis really changes quite a lot. And I've heard some of my friends whom I've met, they've had to leave work because they can't secure a job. They're sick. Their
mhm.
employers, they can't keep them long during for their jobs, right? So, what policies do you think the governments can implement so as to protect um, you persons living with rare diseases or disorders? And yeah.
So
and support your families. Yeah.
this is actually such a good question because I also want to know, like, aren't we, shouldn't we be getting paid something for this? Because life is hard for a girl with living with these rare diseases. I feel like there should be. It should be like a disability thing. Like, if there's a, if you can have a list, is there no group of like rare diseases where all the rare diseases are labeled? I feel like there should be a thing like that. And then if you have one of those, then you should get some sort of financial aid because life is not the same. Like,
Yes.
everything in the world is created for the normal human being. I learned that,
Yeah.
and I developed such a huge respect for people living with disabilities. Um, like, I realized, especially with the visual impairments, and when I couldn't walk, when I couldn't talk, I realized like there's so many things that are only set up for people who have, abilities. And like rare diseases can really mess up the way you function because it takes away, it disables you in some way. Like it takes away a function that other people are able to do normally. And like learning to navigate, I've also learned like that navigating means a lot of the time is more expensive than a regular person's living. Uh, I can't take a taxi anymore. I can't take a
Mm-hmm.
taxi because I'm visually impaired. Uh, so how do I get around? I was working fine, and now I've gotten this rare disease. Surely there should be something given to the person who has to navigate life differently.
That's a really good response. So, what you were speaking on, we like something that labels all the rare diseases. It's what we call a national rare disease registry. So, it's
Mm.
like a collection of all the rare diseases within a country, right? So, it's just the statistics, and those statistics are really important because they allow the government to be able to provide services for persons living with rare
Mm.
diseases, include them in their policies or frameworks. Yeah, things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So it also helps the families. These policies do help the families because we're saying for some people, some rare diseases are genetic, and they can affect someone terribly, such that they cannot access things like you were saying, just like anyone else. The education system, going to school, for example, right? Some children cannot do that, and as a result, the
Mm.
parents have um, an additional burden on them. Not a burden per se, but extra work
It
that they have to
is.
do. Yeah, extra work that they have to do. Maybe teaching their children,
Mm.
homeschooling them, taking care of them when they're especially sick. Because at times, like you did, spending time in a coma, some
Mm.
people, some parents as children can spend time in so much time in the hospital because of their
Yeah.
illnesses, yeah, their diseases, right? So there have to be those policies that also secure those parents' jobs, right? They have a child living with a rare disease. It has to
Mm.
be taken into account for. We've also have a question from Dr. Nyakambangwe, and she's asking, what have you done to bring together other people living with similar conditions?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm very proud of the group that we opened. So we basically just opened a group on. So when I started sharing my story, I found a lot of other people who had Steven Johnson syndrome, and we ended up opening like a little support group on WhatsApp. So we have a little support group. They're from all over the world, surprisingly enough. Different races, different age groups, and yeah, we have a group on WhatsApp where we just share our journey, we share our struggles, we share tips, recovery tips, tips of like the types of medications, like the type of natural, because a lot of us have turned to alternative medication, like natural remedy. So we share a lot of things like that. We share like wins, we share celebrations, like 1 year, 10 years. This one lady's on 17 years, post Stephen Johnson's. So it's really cool. Yeah, we opened a group.
Okay. We also have a question in the chat from okay from now I can see it from Dr. Mugwati. And she's saying, Shaz, listening to you has really moved me, especially the way you turned your suffering into purpose. It's a
Oh,
reminder that health isn't just physical, it's emotional and spiritual too. You've turned your survival into purpose. What helped you move from being a patient to a teacher and a motivator?
gosh, thank you so much. That's really, really kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I guess it didn't, it just happened naturally, honestly speaking. Because it was just more, it was a dance, I shared my story and received feedback. And like, from feedback, you always understand what value people are getting from what you're sharing. So I just ended up giving more of that, and like, I don't know, I just also like, I feel like I was so blessed to have had everything that I had access to. Like, I went to great physios, I went to, my family really committed to making sure that, they knew I was so devastated when I woke up to this new reality, that they really supported me in terms of just, getting me better. And then as soon as I got better, I realized, oh my gosh, like I can actually beat this. Like, as soon as I started getting better and when I started coming to terms with it, I think, yeah, just my own reality gave me so much hope that I wanted to share that with the next person. Like, I learned so many lessons. And like, also during the time, like the hardest time, I spent a lot of time looking at other people who've experienced similar things. I actually didn't come across someone who had experienced what I experienced, but I experienced someone who went blind. I looked at somebody who um, I had burned. It was at some point I was like, this is so much, because I'm literally like reading about four people who had four, like, different events, and I'm just one girl. I remember I was so mad. I'm just one girl and I'm going through all of this right now at the same time. But I also realized that there's so much power in me getting through that, and that getting better was so rewarding for me, and it was teaching me so much. I was just inspired to share, because other people sharing also put me at a better place. Like, I wanted to pay it forward as well. So yeah,
That's beautiful.
thank you.
Then another question from Charlene Makanga. She's saying, Hi Shaz, how
Hi,
has your mental
Charlie.
health changed from before? You mentioned that the rare disease was triggered by a reaction to medication for a mental health issue.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Charlene. That's actually quite a juicy question that I'm also busy dealing with at the moment. So I've been diagnosed two different times, and all just because the most affordable way for me to get like therapy was for me to go into a mental health clinic. That's how I basically ended up there. um I was definitely going through a tough time, emotionally. I lost a lot of grief. It had been like a season in my life where I had been going through a lot of things and then not dealing with it. And then at some point it felt unsafe enough for all of that to come up. And then when it came up, it didn't look good. So I got help. And the first time I got a post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis, and that, I think that was the time when my mental health was the worst. Um, and then the second time I actually went, I had turned 30, and I realized that I just can't focus on anything. Like, I realized that I'm 30 years old, and I just had a breakdown. Like, not one that the next person would have ever known was happening, but one where I was like, why is it that I can't focus on anything? So I decided that I'm going to go get therapy, and I'm going to tell this therapist everything so that they can help me figure out my problem. This was basically my plan, is that I was going to get help, and the therapist was going to tell me what the problem was, why I can't focus on anything. And that was going to be, because the first time I went to therapy, that's what helped me understanding why I was the way that I was, is what sort of opened the door for healing from that season. So I thought that's what I'm going to do again now. But instead, I got told that I have a type 2 bipolar. That was a very shocking diagnosis for me. Um, Not in a bad way. I mean, mental illnesses are mental illnesses. It's just not something I could relate to when I looked at a lot of the symptoms. Some of it I could, but mental health illnesses also overlap a lot. But even with all of that, like, whoa, I still said, okay. I mean, if it's what I got, then I'm gonna read about it, and I'm gonna figure out how my brain works, and I'm just gonna work with that, and I'm gonna move forward. At least I know what's wrong with me now. Um, but at that time, mentally, I feel like I was entitled. I was entitled to a lot of things, and I was entitled to wanting things to be a certain way. And I had just turned 30, and I was upset that things were not happening the way that I was wanting them to happen. But also, I don't know if I was maybe too honest with the psychiatrist. I don't know what made him decide that that was the diagnosis that he was going to give me. Um, until, I mean, obviously, after, getting the reaction, I still needed to know. I was like, okay, I was less entitled now, obviously. I've just experienced a life-changing experience. Everything's different, of course. Um, I now realize how bad life can get. So I'm at a point where I am grateful as shit. So the mental problems that I was experiencing before, I'm not experiencing anymore. So I'm like, okay, but I need to know, maybe I'm just still in survival mode. If I do have a type 2 bipolar, I mean, it's chronic illness, right? I never want to say that I don't have something. I mean, I know that my brain is definitely a neurodivergent one. I just don't know what, what's in it. What's the juice? So I said, let me see a different psychiatrist, right? And he gave me AU, it's like an autism and ADHD one that apparently is getting misdiagnosed a lot in adults as bipolar, because it seems like you are having mood shifts, but instead what you're having is you can't focus. So it looks like it's not so much of a mood, it's a lack of focus. So that's the one, and I relate to that one a whole lot more, because I also struggle with like focus, but I also want routine at the same time. But we're still working through, where I am on that spectrum. um but that is where I'm at with my mental health. I don't struggle with the struggles I struggled with before at all. I don't know if it was just experience that wiped me out, or if my brain decided to change the chemicals after I had that 6.5 week nap. Most people don't get that break. I don't know what caused it, but I don't have the struggles that I do. And with my ADHD and autism, I sort of have like workout programs, and sort of schedule time in the sun, sort of hydration, things that are supposed to counteract the things that will sort of trigger the ADHD, the AUA, the AU, the AOUHD, something like that. But yeah, it's the autism and the ADHD. But that's where I'm at with my mental health.
Okay, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. So our time is now up. I'll just open the floor for anyone with any other questions. Um, if you have questions, you can open your mic. I don't think there are any. Is there anything else you wanted to share, Shaz? Before.
No, no, no.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for having us today. It was really beautiful for us to hear the perspective of someone living with or who has experienced a rare condition or a rare disease, and that will. What you said will definitely take into account in our advocacy work, and try to help advocate for policies that include people like you. We also so in Zimbabwe there are two organizations advocating for persons living with rare diseases. The other one is Rare Diseases and Disabilities Africa. Then the other one, Rare Disorder Zimbabwe, for which Dr. Trudy Nyakambango is the director for. So I'll give her some time to just share a little bit on her work, and she's got so many things, so many interesting things going on. So, Trudy, this is your time. Your mic is off.
I'm back again. Hello, everyone. I'm not going to take much of your time except to share that on the 5th of December, we have a family, rare family event where we are bringing in people that are living with rare conditions together to share lived experiences and to go through various programs that can support them. We are also using this opportunity to plan for 2026, especially in terms of how do we get the awareness campaign to be more visible? How do we get various stakeholders to notice the work that we do? And also to be able to engage them so that they can be more inclusive in terms of people living with rare diseases. We are also happy to share that we will be commemorating Rare Disease Day in February, and we will be sharing various information, videos, webinars as we move towards the Rare Disease Day. We are a small community, but together we are many, and therefore it's important for us to work together towards accessing and also improving the quality of life for rare families in Zimbabwe. So I would like to also just thank Vincent and everybody who was able to attend today for putting this effort, for making this effort to invite guests with lived experiences to share so that people can know that we are for real, our issues are worth noting, and that we need to be included in whatever other people are doing, and therefore there must be interventions and treatment in place for us as well within the available resources that we already have. So thank you again, Vincent, and it was really insightful.